the seminar for shelter and warmth. So I am going to record this tonight so that we can watch it later. And if anybody, I'll let Kira and Connie, can you guys introduce yourselves, and then I'll start recording.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Natalie, and welcome. It's nice to be here with you. This is Kira Woodard, and she is the section leader in Independence 2.
Yes.
Independence 2. And I'm the section leader in Section 4. And we've worked together this week for this, and we're excited to share it with you. So we'll just get started. If you have questions or comments, we're saving them to the end. Is that right, Natalie? I guess she.
But if it's relevant and they want to just jump in right there, that's fine too, or they can use the chat.
Yeah, okay, chat or jump in or hold on to them till the end. Any of those versions is fine. Well, when we knew that this would be the next one, and we thought about all the things that have been happening in the last month in America, we thought, well, this is pretty timely because a lot of things have been happening. In Portland area, our daughter lives in the Willamette Valley, just south of Portland, and they had some pretty serious weather. This first picture of this picnic table came from that area. It just shows you how much ice there was on things, which is not typical of that part of the world. What happened is that, according to our son-in-law who explained things to us, he said, the ice was so heavy on the power lines that it broke the power poles. It wasn't the wind knocking them over or anything else. It was the heavy ice on the wires. Now, if you think about that, it makes you realize how much ice there was there. And see, there's right there is a power pole that went down. And then there's other problems with trees smashing right through houses because the ice was just so heavy on them that it toppled them over. So those things happened in Oregon. And our daughter and her family lost power for 6 days. So fortunately, they had a fireplace and they are comfortable using it. They use it often, and they had plenty of wood. So they just created a shelter around the room, barricaded it off with blankets and tarps, and created a warm space so that they could move into the place where there was a fireplace and just stay warm. And they got used to the idea that they would not have any water or hot water. They did have water, but not hot water. So they just settled in there and they cooked on the fireplace with a Dutch oven and a cast iron frying pan and just settled in. So that's how they handled it. Many other people probably weren't as comfortable as they were, but I said to her at one point, how do you keep your fridge cold? And she said, they just go outside. And I thought this was a very funny picture. It's probably the top of a mailbox, but they would go out and get chunks of ice like you see here and put them in their fridge. And that's how they kept the fridge cold and the freezer until eventually it warmed up, even though there were several days still away from the power coming back on. So one neighbor had a generator and he took turns letting people use it for a few hours at a time and helped keep their fridges cold. But they just made do and they worked together as neighbors and they made it work. Then Texas came, and Texas was a bit of a, what happens when John did? A bit more of a problem because they're not used to cold, like even Oregon is used to cold, not like we are, but Texas was not used to it at all. And it went down into even 0 degrees. So this shows you a little bit of Texas. Now right here, this doesn't look so bad, but right here shows you a picture of what happened because in an intersection because a water main broke. So all of this slush and stuff in the front of the picture is the result of a water main breaking on that street. They really had severe problems. Over 40 people died in Texas from that storm. That's how unprepared they were for this kind of a storm. And as long as I've lived, I've never known what a storm would be like. I mean, that this kind of a storm would happen in Texas. Education and preparation are critical to how we handle an emergency. So tonight we're going to talk about a very simple way to keep ourselves comfortable and safe in this kind of a storm. Tonight is about education. And then when we get through, it will be about preparation, because that's what you're going to do afterwards. We will not be talking about generators, because that's part of the power issue, and that's part of the May seminar. Light and power is the May seminar. So if you have a generator, it will be a little bit different situation than what we're talking about tonight. But this is mostly how to do it without a generator. So these are the webs, besides our information that we already had from ourselves. These are the three websites I use. Be Ready Utah is the emergency management department from Utah website. Most of you are familiar with Be Ready Utah. Ready.gov is from the United States government and has lots of good information on it. And I happened to find another one called the providentprepper.org. Those are the three I use. I know there's lots of information out there, and you can get good information from anywhere. So you can use these three or anything else. And then remember, this is going to be recorded, so you don't need to really write any of these things down, these websites, but these are the websites underneath those that I used. First of all, I would suggest that you get a pencil and paper and write down the things that come to your mind while you're seeing this, because all of this is on the website, or will be on the seminar on the website, but your thoughts won't be there. So as you listen to this and participate in it, if you write down the things that come to your mind about how it specifically relates to your situation, you'll save yourself a lot of time. Pay attention to weather forecasts. These three terms I think are important to understand. The first one, winter storm warning. That's issued when a hazardous winter weather in the form of heavy snow, heavy freezing rain, or heavy sleet is imminent or occurring. They usually are issued 12 to 24 hours before an event. So in other words, if you hear those and you're a long ways away, I suggest you go home and start preparing. If you can't do that, let's just hope you have something in your car or can find shelter somewhere else. A winter storm watch is not as serious. It alerts the public to the possibility of any of those listed above. And I don't know why they said 12 to 48 hours. I checked that on different sites and they all said the same thing. It doesn't make sense. But the point is, it's not as serious as a storm warning. And a storm advisory is similar, only it's just, it will cause significant inconveniences. So pay attention to the different ones. Any of these can happen in Utah as early as October and as late as April. So when those are about to happen, then your time to prepare is past. So we'll talk about preparation for a few minutes. Plan ways to keep the cold out of your home. There are, just keep your home in good condition with insulation, with caulking, with weather stripping. You can sit by a window or a door and see where there are drafts. And take care of those when things are easy. Take care of them now so that you don't have cold always coming into your home. Make a plan so that if it's really cold, you can keep your pipes from freezing. Know your situation and know how to put a heater in the right place or let the water drip a little bit. You can't put a lamp or electric freezer or heater if the electricity is out, but you need to have a plan or you will have a lot of trouble. Be sure you have smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors, and make sure they're on all the levels of your house, because that way then you can track what's happening. Carbon monoxide is a very real issue when you're not using electricity and have other sources of heat and cooking. And obviously have extra batteries for your radios and flashlights. In your freezers, in your extra space, keep bottled water in there so that it freezes and keeps it colder than having just plain air. And then you can use it for water, and it makes your freezer last longer. Keep it as close as much as possible, and make sure you monitor the temperature. If it gets above 40, then that's when it starts to getting dangerous with your food. In Oregon, our daughter had her home phone was actually working during this power outage. So we talked to them, but after 6 days that their cell phones were long out of power. Even if you have one of these battery chargers, it'll do it maybe 2, maybe 3 times, but that's not going to last you a full week if you're not really careful. So have those available. For families high risks, that means babies and people who are sick and older adults and pets. So be sure you've got a backup plan and you've included them in your preparation, because they might have specific needs that the rest of your family doesn't have. Easy to prepare foods. You need something warm, have something that's easy to fix just to heat up, or just takes a few minutes to cook. This is not time for rice and beans. This is a time for heating up foods that the kids like, that the family likes, because it's going to all be stressful enough. And comfort foods, it's going to be not that much fun. So some comfort foods will be helpful. Have plenty of water. We've talked about that continually in Bluffdale. And drinking just plain water is not that much fun, and you need something warm. So have some drink mixes like hot chocolate or Tang or whatever. Once you study these websites, or even this seminar tonight, prepare by purchasing what you need beforehand. Don't wait till things get bad. Remember a year ago, what were people buying like crazy in the stores? Toilet paper. Yes, toilet paper. Don't do that. You know better. You can prepare now. Even if you buy one package each time you go to the store, whether it's toilet paper or a meal you know you need to have ready for this sort of thing, take your time to do it now instead of when things get bad. Know where your resources are. Know where your stoves are or your heaters. And down here, tents and blankets. Know where the tents are. Know where all your extra blankets are. Know where you've got your hand warmers so that you're not running around trying to find them. That's not what I wanted. Later on, I'll show you a picture of, if you have plastic sheeting and painter's tape, this blue tape, not duct tape, but blue tape like this. If you have this tape, you can put plastic sheeting up over really drafty doors and windows, and it will not pull a paint off. Cooking options. Be sure you have more than one source of cooking options and know how to use them, and also heat options. Here's some possibilities. This one on the left is a wood cook stove. It's small, it's compact, it's very efficient. It happens to be in my kitchen. It's what I cooked on for 2 years in Oregon. I canned peaches, I baked cookies, bread, pizza. I know how to use it. If things get bad, it's not a threat to me. It's not going to cause me anxiety to use this stove. most people can't use a wood cook stove, but if you have a fireplace is a great solution. And if you're building a home, it's always nice to prepare by having a wood stove or some sort of wood, if you have wood. We have plenty of wood. The next ones, these three at the top, are an alcohol stove. And Provident Prepper talks about these alcohol stoves. They're pretty safe and they're very efficient and easy to use. This one down here, this with the red border on it, those are propane stoves or heaters, and they work great. We have those and we put them in our tents, or we have one, we put in our tent when we're camping in the winter. The electric heater I put in because sometimes the gas goes out, like a gas pipe break, and you still have electricity. So it's always good to have one of those on hand. Whatever you choose, be sure it is safe for in the house. So, any questions so far?
I do.
Yeah.
So would it be in our best interest to have like an outdoor cooking source and an indoor one? If we can't be inside, then we have something to use outside, like a Camp Chef or a portable stove?
Yes, if you have outdoor camping equipment like a Camp Chef or any similar like that you can't cook on in the house, take it out on your porch and cook and then bring the food back in. You can't cook on that inside, but that would be a great alternative. Even charcoal is cheap and easy. If you had charcoal, you can use it outside. So if you had an outside one and an inside one, that would be a great solution.
Okay, thank you.
So
some questions in the chat. I don't know if we want to get to those
Sure.
now. At the end, they're about freezing pipes. And the questions are, what should you do to keep your pipes from breaking if it's cold and your power is out? Many homes had broken pipes in Texas. Do you keep the water running or turn off the water and drain your lines? Sue said she's worried about a broken sewer line and questions about can you just let the water drip in your pipes? What is going to be the best thing?
Yes, you can. That's the easiest way, is just a little stream of water. It wastes water, but that's insignificant compared to breaking pipes. A lot of us, when it's really cold at night, even in our good insulated houses, if it's really cold, we leave a little stream of water on. So yes, I would do that. I would put it, if you can put a heater in there and it's ventilated and it's blocked off from the rest of the house, that's a safe way. If it gets really bad, you can turn the water off at the main in front of your house and drain your pipes. That is a solution. So any of those are solutions. If you don't have water, I mean, in Texas, a lot of them didn't have water because like I showed in that one picture, the water mains broke. So you better have plenty of water. But if you do have that problem, that it's really cold and you don't have electricity, you should for sure do something, the dripping water, or put a heater in that area, or just shut it all off, which is complicated, but still, you don't want to break pipes. You're just compounding your problem. And that's a very smart thing to be aware of it and come up with your plan. Everybody, all of our pipes are in one spot in our house in what we call our furnace room. So we would just keep that room heated for the pipes and not the rest of the house except for where the wood stove is. That's how we would do it. But come up with a plan, research it, and figure out what is best in your situation. Okay, so if you're outside, limit your time out there because you don't want to get cold and chilled and then have to come into an already cold house and try to warm up. So dress in layers and be very aware of frostbite and hypothermia. Study those and get used to the symptoms of those and try to prevent that. You can even have frostbite and hypothermia in your house. People died in Texas in homes because of hypothermia, which is awful. But they weren't prepared, didn't know what to do, weren't educated. And so it can happen. It can happen anywhere. And if you get frostbite or hypothermia, your tendency to get it again is much greater. It's like when you get heat stroke or heat exhaustion, you have a much bigger chance of getting it again. You're much more susceptible to being overheated. Same with frostbite and hypothermia. You're much more susceptible to those. So try to prevent those as much as possible. And don't overexert yourself, because lots of people die of heart attacks trying to shovel snow. I mean, it gets you from all sides. And don't work up a sweat outside, because then that draws the moisture and the heat away from your body. So in your home, this one picture with the blue tape around the windows, cover your windows and doors with that blue tape, because that will keep the drafts out and make sure that you are as warm as you can. Also cover the kitchen exhaust fan or the dryer vent or leaky windows or the fireplace flue if you're not using it. Any other gaps, just take time at the beginning to do that, and then you will save yourself a lot of trouble. Okay, so select a room in your house that is most likely to stay warm from either being on the south side or upstairs if it's warmer, or downstairs if it's warmer. You know your house. Select a living area where you're going to just pretty much camp out until you get your electricity back. Take a tent, face it toward the heat source, and put blankets over the top of it if you want, and move in, because that's how you stay warm, by cuddling up, by centralizing, focusing the heat. This picture over here on the right with the kids in the blue blanket, this is from Texas, day one of Texas. The outside temperature was 18, the inside was 1. No, I'm sorry. The high was 18 and the low was 1. And the inside temperature was 51. The story over here on this side shows that in the middle of the night, the mom got up and found out that the temperature in the house was 40, but when she took the temperature in the tent, it was 80. So the kids were sleeping in 80-degree temperature when it was 40 in the rest of the house and 1 outside. So this is how easy it is to stay warm if you're prepared with, know where your tents are, have one that's the right size, set it up on your bed, set it up wherever it will work. If you don't have a tent, use a table and blankets like you used to when you were little to make a fort, or use a bunk bed and drape blankets over it. Just whatever will contain the heat. Kids will love it. They'll think it's a game. And conserve fuel by keeping all of your activities in that spot. Don't spread around through the house and put a heater in each spot. Stay in one spot so that you can conserve your heat and use those heat sources as needed. So dress to stay warm. The kids are playing in the tent, but they're dressed warm. Dress in layers so you don't get overheated and sweaty. Dress warmly from the start. It's like medicines. It's easier to stay warm than to get cold and then have to warm back up. And keep a hat on, because that keeps your head warm and it feels much more comfortable for the rest. Again, protect the extremities. Don't let things get so bad that you feel frostbite. And if you get sweaty, change your clothes, because that draws the heat away from you. Okay, the food you're going to want to serve is food people like. This is already stressful enough, so you're not going to make them eat things that they don't like. You want to have a good supply of food that they look forward to eating. First of all, drink plenty of water. So with your cooking source, prepare warm and easy to prepare foods, comfort foods, and hot drinks with whatever mixes, like hot chocolate or like Tang, like we said before, because those things will help people from getting the frostbite and the hypothermia and just keep them generally healthier. Keep active and positive and moving. Play games. Just keep, when you're active, you stay warmer. Be creative about it. Play games in that room, or do something, snuggle with your pets, just make it a positive experience for kids so they don't get stressed by it being so different. Snuggle with pets. Lots of times you can take, if you've got a fireplace or a heater, put a big rock or a brick by it. It'll heat up during that time, and then it takes a long time for it to cool off. So you can put it in your sleeping bag or wrap a blanket around it and let a kid take it to bed with them. Hand warmers are a good idea. Lots of times when I go camping, I take my water bottle and I fill it full of hot water that I heat up from the stove, and I put it in the bottom of my sleeping bag, and my feet stay warm all night. And that would be a great thing for a kid if they're cold. And emergency blankets, the one I love to use is this one. It's Sol, S-O-L is the brand. You've probably seen these packages. It's called an emergency or survival blanket. It's orange. This is it right here. It's not those Mylar ones that drive you crazy because they're so noisy and tear so easily. These are very easy to use and use over and over and over again. I've used these many times. If it happens to tear, you can just mend it with tape and it stays back together. This is a great blanket to use. They're very small. They wrap up, fold up easily. And if you keep a few with you, it retains a lot of heat. In your car is a great place to put it. And in your supplies for in the house. Okay. Safety precautions. It's really important to keep all gas-powered tools outside. Don't use your gas appliances to heat your home. If you have a gas stove, don't just turn it on to heat your kitchen up, because it will cause toxic air. Have alternative plans for the medications that you have to keep refrigerated. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, refrigerated. And like was talked about by Sue, don't bring your camping equipment indoors to cook with. And we've already talked about the pipes. In one of the websites that says carbon monoxide is your enemy during a winter storm. Be very careful. That's why you should have carbon monoxide detectors in your house, so that you know when something's going wrong, because you can't tell just by the air. It doesn't have a smell to it. Okay, wait a minute. Before that one, I wanted to say one other thing. Any questions right now?
Nothing in the chat.
You're going to talk about testing.
Okay, one other thing I wanted to say is that, okay, tonight's about education. After tonight, it's about preparation. So now that you know where the sources are, this presentation as well as all of the websites or whatever website you want. I mean, it's out there everywhere. Not knowing what to do is not an excuse. We've educated ourselves. Now it's time to prepare. Take time to do the things that you need to do to locate your items, to create some food that will be good for this, or buy some food. Anyway, all the things that we've been talking about. So the next thing you need to do after you've prepared is to practice. Many times I've read stories about people who practiced and they thought they had it all figured out when they started. And then by the time they got through, there was a whole list of things that they knew that they needed to change or fix or buy or whatever. That way, if you practice, you know you will be ready. Until you've really practiced, you don't know. You don't know if you really know how to use that new stove in the house. You don't know if you really know how to use that heater, or that the kids will eat that food, or that they can handle that kind of experience. if you make it a game and make it fun, say, okay, kids, we're going to turn the heat off and we're not going to use any electricity for today, tonight, and tomorrow. And just see what it's like. Prepare them for it, make it fun, make it doable, not traumatizing. Then pretty soon they'll get the hang of it, you'll get the hang of it, and it won't be such a crisis when it happens. So we've educated, now it's time to prepare and then to practice. And we have not talked about emergency kits in cars. Obviously, that's part of this whole story. You've heard this stories many times about how to prepare a kit for in the car. So make that part of your preparation, that you've got a kit in the car, and the information's out there everywhere. Okay, and if you do practice, I think you should write it up, what you did, what the experience was like, how it went, and then send it to Natalie so that she can let the rest of us know how it went, because I think the more we learn from each other, the better things will be. So any other questions or comments?
So I have one.
Okay.
So they have all the prefab meals that you can get online. There's a bunch of them that requires like a lot of water. Have you ever used any of those?
I've used them camping, backpacking, but I haven't used them so much. Are you talking about prepared meals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like Mountain House.
Yeah, I've used Mountain House, and they don't take a lot of water and they don't take a lot of heat. In other words,
Okay.
you boil the water, you bring the water to the boil, and then you pour it in that foil package and zip it back up and let it sit for 10 minutes or 8 minutes or whatever.
Okay.
Those are a good idea. Like I said before, this is not a time for rice and beans because they take so much fuel. When I go backpacking or anything like this, I would open a can of something that the family likes, or I would take something that only takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes at the most to heat up. This is not luxury, this is survival.
Mm-hmm.
So pick good foods that the kids will eat or whoever's in your house will eat, and choose ones that don't take a long time to cook. Some spaghettis take 12 minutes. Some spaghettis take 3 minutes. Be wise about how much fuel you're going to use in cooking a meal. Pretend you're out in the mountains backpacking, because when you think like that, then you know you don't want to spend a long time preparing food or using up fuel to heat up food. I would do it maybe something in the most 3 minutes, or just something to heat up, their favorite stew or instant oatmeal or whatever. But yeah, Mountain House, those types of foods are very usable and very doable for this sort of thing, and very practical because they're easy to use. I've used them backpacking, and they're very comfortable and easy to use, and they're pretty tasty. So if your family knows, they're a good choice. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
I know there was something in the chat here. Let's. Okay. What heaters should not be used indoors? Same question.
What is it?
Says what heaters should not be used indoors? Same question on cooking sources.
Yeah, those one stoves and heaters that have the red around them, those are propane, and they say they are they are safe in the house. I would not use kerosene. Kerosene is much more tricky to do successfully in the house, and if you're not comfortable with it, I would never use it. I wouldn't use it anyway. The safest thing is to research it. There's lots of research about that on the internet, and I would make sure that when I purchase something that is said it's safer in the house. Otherwise, if it says for outdoor cooking only, and we know which ones those are because they're like we've talked about, the Camp Chef or whatever, or charcoal briquettes, that kind of thing. but they very clearly say on them whether or not they are for indoors. So I would research it, and then I would choose from the ones that I know are recommended by several of these different emergency prep websites. I know what is it called? The Prepper. The Provident Prepper. They recommended a few because they've done a lot of studying on it, but there's a dozen websites out there that do the same thing. So I would just study it and be sure that you are making a decision that you know is a safe decision, because products are always changing. So you can't just pinpoint one, but you do know by the label and by the research people have done. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, let's go to the last.
Oh, sorry, let me just click on this really quick. Oh, there's another chat that just popped up here.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Heather, for sharing your resource. It says
Yeah.
Mr. Heater is one we have for indoors. Just in case you don't get
Yeah.
the chats for the recording.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, in conclusion, I would just like to say being prepared for an emergency means you can be a good neighbor, share what you have, help where needed, and combine resources where possible. And that's what Bluffdale people do. And I believe that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Great. Any other questions before Connie leaves about heat and warmth and? Okay, wonderful. We'll make this available online. I'll send out an email.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks, Natalie.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for attending.
Thanks for Kara.
Thank you.